You're staring at the catalog page, scrolling through endless options, and the nagging thought keeps coming back. What if I spend a good chunk of money on an autoclave that just sits there half-filled, or takes forever to finish a cycle, and ends up being more hassle than help? It's a legitimate worry, especially when you're running a busy clinic or a small lab and can't afford downtime. I get it, every piece of equipment you bring in has to earn its keep. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Tuttnauer 3870 EAP isn't a flashy new gadget. It's a workhorse designed for environments that need a reliable, high-volume sterilization solution. Let's walk through what that actually looks like in the day-to-day, what the numbers mean for you, and where the value really sits beyond the headline specs. First off, the chamber. At 22 gallons, roughly 85 liters, it's big enough to take a full set of dental instruments, a batch of surgical trays, or a stack of lab glassware in one go. The internal dimensions of 15 by 30 inches mean you can lay out standard trays flat without crowding, which translates to fewer loads per day. In a practice that sees a steady flow of patients, that can shave off the minutes you'd otherwise spend loading and unloading a smaller unit. I've heard from colleagues that the full chamber approach reduces overall turnaround time, not because the cycles are faster, but because you're moving more items per cycle. Speaking of cycles, the unwrapped run time sits between 23 and 32 minutes. For most instruments that aren't wrapped in paper or foil, that's a decent sweet spot. You get a sterile batch in under half an hour, which fits nicely between appointments. If you need to run wrapped loads, say, pre-packaged sets for surgery, the time creeps up, but that's expected for any autoclave with a closed-door drying system. The active drying component is worth noting because it actively pulls moisture out while the door stays shut, keeping the chamber sterile even after the cycle ends. In practice, that means you won't have to wipe down the interior before the next load, and you reduce the risk of recontamination. Now, the automatic part isn't just a buzzword. The machine runs through the entire sterilization sequence: pressurization, exposure, depressurization, drying without you having to intervene. You set the parameters, start the cycle, and it logs the results. For a busy clinic, that removes a layer of manual oversight and frees up staff to focus on patient care rather than watching a gauge. The built-in printer prints a concise report for each run, which is handy for compliance audits. You can file those reports with your other sterilization logs, satisfying the usual health authority requirements without extra paperwork. So, who should seriously consider the 3870 EAP? If you run a dental office with multiple chairs, a veterinary surgery that handles both small and large animal procedures, or a research lab that needs to sterilize bulk glassware daily, the capacity and cycle speed become tangible benefits. The machine also makes sense for small hospitals that have a dedicated central sterilization department rather than a single room-side autoclave. In those settings, the upfront cost is offset by the ability to process larger batches, which cuts labor hours and reduces the number of cycles you need to run each day. On the flip side, if you're a solo practitioner, a boutique spa, or a small podiatry office that only needs to sterilize a few trays a day, the 22-gallon chamber can feel like overkill. The footprint of the unit is sizable. You'll need a dedicated space with proper ventilation and a stable power supply. It's not a piece you can tuck under a counter. The larger the machine, the more it draws on your electricity bill. And while the power draw isn't astronomical, it's something to factor into your operating budget if you're already watching overheads. Maintenance is another practical consideration. Tuttnauer's reputation for durability is solid, but any autoclave demands routine checks: water quality monitoring, gasket inspections, and periodic internal cleaning. The 3870 EAP's automatic cycle logging helps you stay on top of that, but you still need to schedule service visits or have a tech on call. If you're not comfortable setting up a maintenance contract, you might find yourself scrambling when the unit needs a seal replacement or a pressure valve calibration. Let's talk value beyond the specs. The real money saver here is the reduction in repeat cycles. With a smaller autoclave, you often end up running multiple short cycles to get through the day's load, which means more energy use and more wear on the machine. The 3870 EAP's ability to handle a full day's workload in fewer cycles translates to lower cumulative energy consumption and less downtime for the unit itself. Additionally, the printed cycle reports provide an audit trail that can protect you in case of an infection control investigation, something that's hard to quantify but can save you a lot of trouble. If you're still on the fence, picture the scenario where you have a sudden influx of patients, maybe a community health drive or an emergency surgery schedule.